Hello and welcome to another modelling video. This is Alan from the What Kind of Man at YouTube with a 77 scale World War II tank build and review. The German Stug III from a reasonably unknown Mexican manufacturer. I am unsure if this mould is original to them or not, but I bought this kit at the Bayonet Military Model Competition in November 2 for $5. The first thing I came across, besides a sheet of Decals, which mind you are not bad at all, was this instruction sheet and very limited resource material or reference material. These tanks have very complex colour schemes and camouflage, and with very bland and hard to understand instructions to boot and not knowing where to glue together, the start has been extremely hopeless so far. I found the same variant of Stug III online with one or two tiny changes and replicated the colours I visually saw from this computer generated image into Tamir and Mr. Hobby colours. We are presented with 3 runners, 2 tan, 1 white. Most of them are used for the wheel detail. These 70-second kits with a ton of parts and a heap of detail is a lot of fun and normally quite pricey, to the reason why I jumped onto this model, but the wheels are just always very involved, especially the very older kits with the individual link tracks. They are quite a pain and do not follow the instructions too closely. Sometimes you need to line them up by eye and personal touch to get the links absolutely perfect. You don't want them to be too tight or too loose, as it will look just completely wrong. This old school style definitely needs patience when you're tackling it for things to be straight and decent looking. The box shape is also quite difficult, as there's no butt joints or guidelines to hook everything up. You'll need to glue pieces one by one and allow it to fully dry, harden and cure, so your basic box of the hull will be strong enough to support itself. During 75% of the builds, from the start to this stage, care and lots of test fitting is definitely required. It is believed that the turret was meant to be articulated, but the base of the cannon is quite heavy and the mechanism underneath the hull very weak. It went completely pear-shaped and it was completely glued down. I thought I was out of the woods, and a lot of the detail around the hull came down very cleanly and easily. Without a turret, I thought I was near finished. I thought I was out of the woods and everything would be easy, then the shit hit the fan with the side armour. The pegs could not glue to the side of the armour very well, with little indication of where they went and how to attach it to the actual armour itself. The instructions did not give me any clue on how to put this together, as bland as they were, and had to refer to other models built through internet research and reference material of the real tank. This took a fair amount of effort and to get this right. After the rest of the detail and a tiny bit of seam line filling, which there was not a lot, this appeared to be an excellent fit, just crappy instructions. The tracks were a tad rough and required a tiny bit of tender love of care, with a little more putty and filing, which resulted in quite a nice detailed and finished body ready for painting. Normally I find the construction of the kit most fun, but with this build was extremely difficult, and a lot of the fun came into the finishing and painting. I laid down some Tamir primer via airbrush and was amazed by how nice and charming the detail and panel lines were. Amazingly, no flaws also appeared. Looking at the image before, I chose some colours which were slightly lighter. Filtering and weathering will come after to darken the kit up. It is sprayed in acrylic because it's summer currently in Australia with slightly humid weather, and I'm not going to use lacquers or enamels in risk of damaging the paintwork or having to sand down and repaint. Now, this kit has all sorts of interesting hidden areas which can be attacked by a paintbrush, a little harder by spraying. I picked it up with my hands and sprayed underneath the cannon, in between the armour pieces and into the wheel wells, then let it to dry. In a few hours' time I painted the top, allowed that to dry for many more hours, flipped it again and painted the bottom. This is the base coat colour, and as long as this coat covers everything, I'm quite happy. The rest is just going to be strands of camouflage. With very careful precision, I mixed the paint as perfectly as I could to a slightly thicker consistency than normal, and toned down the PSI to around 15, and started doing the green splotches according to the reference material. Just a brief idea, I would do some lines to test to make sure the airbrush isn't spluttering or causing any faults. As an example, on this turntable I would draw out a rough shape freehand. Of course, if you're doing an exact colour scheme, you can sketch things out with a grey lead pencil, and once you have the ideal frame you can colour in. After a few hours, the brown was also freehand painted on it as well. I feel I'm getting slightly better at this soft edge colour scheme technique. It does take some practice, but it isn't as difficult as senior modelers make it out to be. I used the Citadel black ink as a filter darkener and to fill in all the detail and panel lines to create some definition and the slight gloss sheen for decaling. After I applied the decals and top coated it with a Tamiya clear flat, I applied the new colours of MIG production pigments which I picked up in Japan for some nice heavy dusty European soil look. Of course, I almost forgot to mention smaller details such as the tank tracks, little jerry cans, and the machine gun on top of the hull was hand painted with a fine tip brush. Unlike the Airfix builds, this one was a lot more involved and took far longer, mostly due to not being a well-known or high-quality brand, and definitely an older manufacturer of kit during the golden age of the hobby within North America. Nonetheless, I definitely had an absolute ball, and I cannot be more happy with this finish. The decals came on beautifully, the detail pops magically, and with an extra addition of a little bit of dry brushing on the edges, this thing definitely absolutely pleases me as just a mental build muck around on a very cheap kit. I did not expect a finish like this. It's quite funny with a play around model. Sometimes they come out quite nice unexpectedly, and sometimes they are a tad flat, which I have built a few of them recently. All in all, with these quick builds, it's all about practicing individual and particular techniques, and just keep working your mind, working your hand on smaller things in between your much bigger builds, and these do not take a lot out of your life. Absolute ton of fun. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, the message is always practice and you will be able to achieve the style of finish or the desired results you want in your kits.